Now, there is another impact from this war that you probably won't see until next year, and that has to do with the price that you pay for food. I know you're going to make the argument you're already paying more for food, and you are, but because of the impact on farming from this war this year, just wait. Everyday life in much of Ukraine is ground to a halt. That's true in the devastated cities, but also across the vast countryside. Fields that produce enough agricultural products to earn it the nickname the breadbasket of Europe. Those farmers famously pulling tanks with their tractors are not tending to the fields, planting crops, and that's the soon-to-be-felt impact of this war.
I think this is probably one of the biggest global shocks we've seen to world commodity markets, certainly in the last 50 years.
Dr. Ian Sheldon is Anderson's Chair of Agricultural Marketing, Trade and Policy at Ohio State. Ukraine has been the largest supplier of corn to China, while Russia and Ukraine account for 29% of global wheat production, 31% of barley.
And of course, Russia and Ukraine supply, 75% of the world's sunflower oil. So that's having knock-on effects into the vegetable oil market. So, yeah, I think it's a very big shock.
Now, you might think all this is great news for Ohio farmers who are seeing prices for their main crops of corn, soybean, and wheat that they haven't seen in years. But the war in Ukraine, plus inflation as a whole, is impacting their bottom line.
Our inflation this year is 78% over what it was last year.
Portage County farmer Chuck Sayre says they're being hit from several different angles, but a big factor is the skyrocketing cost of diesel.
When we order a tanker load of diesel fuel, it was $8,000 before, now it's $40,000.
And during the upcoming spring planting season, they'll go through a tanker load of diesel a week.
A large tractor like this one behind me, it'll cost us an extra $1,000 a day just in fuel over what it did last year.
On top of that, a lot of fertilizers are petroleum-based, hiking their costs, and one of the world's largest suppliers of fertilizers just happens to be Russia, so that means there'll be less available. And weed killer, he says, that's a whole other issue.
Roundup has quadrupled in price, if you can get it.
Sayre says that's because China, the main producer of it, has cut by a third what they're planning to send to the U.S. this year. As a result, at a time when America will be needed to produce more, farmers might end up not planting more than they can fertilize and protect, which means less than last year.
Which brings your yields down, and as your yields come down, your input costs have gone up, the balance starts to tip very quickly.
All of this, something consumers, he said, will see reflected down the road in their supermarket bill.
When you go to the store now, you're seeing what happened 8 months ago. The bread prices, the milk prices and stuff, that's what happened 8 months ago. For us now, when these input costs go up, when our 78% inflation hits us, we have to pass that on. So as we pass that on, the producers will take our material. This fall, as we harvest, they'll take the material in, they'll process it, it'll become your food for next spring. That's when your inflation will hit.
A lot to take in on a Sunday morning for sure. You're welcome.